The distress signal came through at 3 in the morning ship time. Jack was sleeping in his cabin when the alarm pulled him from his dreams. He sat up quickly and rubbed his eyes. After 20 years of flying cargo ships through deep space, he knew that sound meant trouble. He walked to the bridge where Amy Dawson was already at her station. She looked worried, and that was unusual. Amy was the kind of person who stayed calm even when things went bad. If she was worried, something serious was happening. "What do we have?" Jack asked as he sat in the captain's chair. "A fleet-wide distress call," Amy said. "It's the—" Jack felt his stomach tighten. They were a reptilian species, tall and proud. They had been powerful once, one of the oldest civilizations in the galaxy. But 2 years ago, something terrible happened to there. A cosmic event called the Sundering had destroyed their sun. Billions died. The survivors fled in whatever ships they could find. "How many ships?" Jack asked. "Over 200, Amy replied. "They're carrying about 3 million survivors. That's all that's left of their entire species." Jack stared at the screen showing the distant fleet. The ships were in bad shape. Even from far away, he could see the damage. These were not warships or luxury vessels. They were cargo haulers, passenger transports, anything that could fly, and they were falling apart. "Their message says they're almost out of food and fuel," Amy continued. "They've been asking the Galactic Council for help for months. Nobody will take them in." "Why not?" Amy pulled up some files on her screen. "Politics. They made a lot of enemies when they were powerful. The Empire hates them most of all. They've told every council member that anyone who helps them will face consequences." Jack shook his head. 3 million people were dying slowly in space, and nobody would help them because of old grudges. It made him angry in a way he had not felt in years. "Wait," Amy said suddenly. Her eyes went wide as she read something on her screen. "Jack, look at this." She sent the information to his display. It was an old historical record from 200 years ago. Jack read it twice because he could not believe what it said. In the year 2647, humanity had just started exploring space. They were young and weak compared to the other species in the galaxy. Then a plague struck Earth. It spread fast and killed millions. Humanity sent out desperate calls for help, but most species ignored them. Humans were too small and unimportant to care about. But one species answered, They sent ships loaded with medicine and doctors. They asked for nothing in return. They simply helped because it was the right thing to do. Without them, humanity might have died out completely. Jack sat back in his chair. He had learned about this in school as a child, but like most people, he had forgotten. It was ancient history, but now, reading those old records, he felt something stir in his chest. "They saved us," he said quietly. "Yes," Amy agreed, "and now they need saving." Jack made his decision in that moment. He opened a communication channel to Earth Command. It took several minutes to connect because of the distance, but finally, a tired-looking officer appeared on screen. "Captain, what is the nature of your emergency?" the officer asked. "No emergency on my end," Jack said, "but there's a fleet nearby that's dying. They need our help." The officer sighed. "We're aware of the situation. The Council has advised all member species to stay out of it. They have made threats." "They saved humanity 200 years ago," Jack said firmly. "Did everyone forget that?" The officer was quiet for a moment. "That was a long time ago, Captain." "Does that make it less true?" There was no answer. Jack ended the call and sat in silence. Amy watched him carefully. "What now?" she asked. "We go higher," Jack said. Over the next few hours, Jack sent messages to everyone he could reach. He contacted news stations and politicians. He reminded them of the debt humanity owed. Some people called him foolish. Others said he was trying to start a war. But slowly, the message spread. The story of how they saved humanity began appearing on news feeds across Earth and the colonies. People who had forgotten started to remember. Old history books were pulled from archives. Grandparents told there about the plague and the aliens who came to help. 3 days later, Jack received a message directly from Earth. It was from President Daniel Grant himself. The president's face was serious but determined. "Captain," the president said, "your message has been heard. I've spoken with the council and with our own people. Not everyone agrees with what I'm about to do. Some say I'm being foolish. Some say I'm putting humanity at risk." He paused and took a deep breath. "But I've read the history. I've seen what they did for us when we were weak and dying. They didn't ask what it would cost them. They just helped. And now it's our turn." The president leaned forward. "I'm authorizing a full humanitarian mission to the fleet. We're sending food, medicine, fuel, and an offer of sanctuary. Let them make their threats. Humanity pays its debts." Jack felt tears forming in his eyes. Amy grabbed his arm and smiled. "We're really doing this," she said. "Yes," Jack replied, "we're really doing this." Across the galaxy, in a damaged ship at the head of the dying fleet, an old commander named received the transmission from Earth. He read it 3 times. Then he lowered his head and wept. The humans remembered. After 200 years, they remembered. The human convoy left Earth space 5 days after the president's announcement. 20 ships carried food, medicine, water, and fuel. Jack led them in his old cargo vessel, with Amy Dawson at his side as always. They were not alone. News of the mission had spread across human space and volunteers came from everywhere. Doctors, engineers, farmers, teachers, people who wanted to help. By the time the convoy launched, it had grown to 35 ships. But not everyone was happy. On the day they departed, a message arrived from the Empire. Ambassador, a tall creature with gray skin and cold eyes, appeared on every news channel in the galaxy. "The Empire warns all species," he said in a flat voice. "They are our enemies. Any civilization that offers them aid will be considered an enemy as well. We do not make empty threats. We will act." Many council members sent worried messages to Earth. They urged humanity to turn back. They had one of the largest fleets in the galaxy. A war with them could destroy everything humans had built. President Grant gave a simple response: "We're going anyway." Jack watched the debate from his ship as they traveled through deep space. He understood why people were afraid. They were dangerous, and humanity was still a young species in galactic terms. But some things mattered more than safety. After 12 days of travel, they reached the fleet. Jack had thought he was prepared for what he would see. He was wrong. The ships were in terrible condition. Some had holes in their hulls covered with emergency patches. Others were running on backup power because their main systems had failed. Jack counted at least 30 vessels that were being towed because they could no longer fly on their own. "There are children on those ships," Amy said quietly as she looked at the scanner data. "Thousands of children." Jack opened a communication channel. "Fleet, this is Captain Jack of the Earth Convoy. We're here to help." For a long moment there was only silence. Then a voice answered, rough and tired. "Human vessel, this is Commander of the Survivors. We received your government's message, but we did not believe it. We thought it must be a mistake." "No mistake," Jack said. "We brought food, medicine, and supplies. We also brought an offer. Earth is preparing a colony world for your people. You can settle there. You'll be safe." Another long silence. "Why?" Commander asked finally. "Why would you do this? You know they will attack you. You know the Council has abandoned us. Why would humans risk everything for a dying species?" Jack smiled even though they could not see him. "Because 200 years ago we were dying, and you saved us. Did you think we would forget?" The silence this time lasted even longer. When Commander spoke again, his voice was shaking. "I was part of that mission. I was young then, just a junior officer. I helped load the medicine onto the ships that went to Earth. I never thought I would see humans again. I never imagined that one day they would come to save us." Jack felt a lump in his throat. "Then let us return the favor, Commander. Bring your ships alongside. We have a lot of work to do." Over the next several hours, the human convoy began distributing supplies. Small shuttle craft flew between ships, carrying food and medical equipment. Human doctors boarded vessels and started treating the sick. Engineers helped repair broken systems. Amy took charge of food distribution. She worked for 18 hours straight, making sure that every ship received what it needed. When she finally took a break, she found Jack standing at a window, watching a transport receive supplies. "The children were the hardest part," she said quietly. "Some of them haven't eaten properly in weeks. They're so thin." Jack nodded. He had seen the medical reports. Malnutrition was widespread. Some of the youngest might not survive even with help. "We came in time," he said. "That's what matters. A few more weeks and it would have been too late." A new person joined the mission the next day. Her name was Laura, and she was from Earth. Her job was to figure out how to feed the long term. Their biology was different from humans, and they could not eat most Earth food. Laura worked with scientists day and night. She studied their nutritional needs and compared them to Earth crops. After 3 days of almost no sleep, she found a solution. "Earth wheat," she announced to the team. "If we modify it slightly, we can make it safe and nutritious for biology. We can grow it on the colony world. They won't have to depend on supply ships forever." It was the first piece of truly good news since the mission began. Commander visited Jack's ship to thank him personally. The old was tall and covered in dark green scales, but his eyes were soft with emotion. "My people do not know how to express what we feel," said. "For months, we sent messages to every species we knew. We begged for help. Everyone refused. We thought we were going to die alone in the darkness of space." He placed one clawed hand on Jack's shoulder. "Then you came, humans, the small species we helped so long ago. You remembered us when everyone else forgot." Jack did not know what to say. He simply nodded. But their moment of peace was interrupted by an urgent message from Earth. Amy's face went pale as she read it. "The fleet is moving," she said. "They're coming this way. We have 30 days before they reach us." The war was coming, and humanity had chosen its side. The colony world was called New Eden. It was a beautiful planet with green forests, clean rivers, and wide open plains. Humanity had been saving it for future expansion, but now it had a different purpose. The refugees began arriving 2 weeks after the rescue mission. Ships landed one after another, carrying families who had spent months living in cramped, damaged vessels. When they stepped onto solid ground for the first time, many of them cried. Mayor Bate Collins was in charge of New Eden. She was a practical woman who had spent 20 years building the colony from nothing. At first, she had doubts about taking in millions of alien refugees. It would strain their resources. It would change everything about their quiet world. But when she saw the first children walk off the ships, thin and scared and holding onto their parents, her doubts disappeared. "Welcome to New Eden," she told them. "This is your home now." The early days were not easy. They were a proud species with a long warrior tradition. They were not used to accepting help from others. Some of them felt shame at their situation. They had once been powerful, and now they were refugees depending on a younger species for survival. There were also problems with the human colonists. Not everyone was happy about sharing their world. Some people complained about the strange alien customs. Others worried about what would happen when they arrived. The turning point came because of a child. His name was. He was 8 years old in human terms, and he had lost both his parents during the Sundering. He lived in the refugee camp with hundreds of other orphans, quiet and sad and barely speaking to anyone. One afternoon wandered away from the camp. Nobody noticed at first. When they realized he was missing, panic spread quickly. The forests of New Eden were beautiful but dangerous. There were wild animals and deep rivers. A small child alone out there might not survive the night. Amy Dawson was visiting the colony when the alarm went up. Without hesitation, she joined the search party. They spread out through the forest, calling the child's name. Amy found him 3 hours later sitting beside a stream. He was shaking with cold and fear. When he saw her, he tried to run, but he was too weak. Amy knelt down slowly. She did not speak his language well, but she tried anyway. "Safe," she said, using one of the few words she knew. "You are safe." Stared at her with large golden eyes. Then slowly, he moved toward her. Amy opened her arms and the small alien child fell into them, crying against her shoulder. Someone had been filming the search. When the video of Amy holding spread across the colony and then across human space, something changed. People who had been unsure about saw something they recognized. A scared child. A kind stranger. The moment was simple, but it meant everything. After that, the barriers began to fall. Human families started visiting the refugee camp to bring gifts for the children. Workers joined human construction crews to build new housing. A teacher began offering classes about their culture, and hundreds of humans signed up. Loris-modified wheat seeds were planted in the colony's fields. Within weeks, the first crops began growing. For the first time since the sundering, they had a reliable source of food that they had helped grow themselves. Commander watched all of this with wonder. He had lived a long life and seen many things, but nothing like this. "Your people are strange," he told Jack one evening as they walked through the growing settlement. "Most species help others only when there is something to gain, but humans help simply because they want to. I do not fully understand it." Jack smiled. "Maybe we're just paying forward what we received. You helped us once. Now we help others. Maybe someday they'll help someone else." Was quiet for a moment. That is a beautiful way to think about the universe. Their peaceful moment was interrupted by an urgent message. Ambassador had sent a final warning to Earth. The fleet was now 15 days away. His message was short and cold. Surrender within 30 standard days or face total war. There will be no further negotiation. President Grant responded the same day. His speech was broadcast to every corner of human space and beyond. "They have given us an ultimatum," he said. "They want us to hand over 3 million innocent people who came to us for help. They want us to abandon those who once saved our entire species from extinction." He paused, and when he spoke again, his voice was firm. "Our answer is no. Humanity does not abandon those who saved us. We do not betray people who trusted us. We remember our debts and we honor them. Let them come. We will be waiting." The galaxy watched in shock. Humanity, a young and relatively small species, was standing against one of the most powerful empires in existence. Many thought they were foolish. Some thought they were brave. On New Eden, they heard the speech together. When it ended, Elder, the last surviving member of their High Council, rose to speak. 200 years ago," he said, his old voice trembling, "we made a choice to help a dying species. We asked for nothing in return. We did it because it was right. Today, that choice has saved us. The humans have shown us what true honor looks like." He bowed his head. "Whatever happens next, we will face it together with our human friends. We are no longer alone." In the distance, the fleet drew closer. War was coming. But for the first time in months, they felt something they had almost forgotten. Hope, Admiral Park stood on the bridge of his flagship and looked at the tactical display. The numbers were not good. They were sending over 300 warships. Humanity had gathered everything they could, but they only had 112 vessels ready for battle. They were outnumbered 3-1. Park was a veteran officer who had served for 30 years. He had fought pirates, defended colonies, and faced dangers that most people could not imagine. But he had never faced anything like this. "Admiral," his communications officer said, "we're receiving messages from several council species. They're urging us to reconsider." Park did not even look up. "Delete them." "Sir, the Elder is requesting to speak with you." Park paused. "Put him through." Elder's face appeared on the screen. The old looked tired and sad. "Admiral Park," said, "I must speak to you about something important. I have been thinking about this for many days, and I believe I have found a solution that could save your people." Park raised an eyebrow. "What kind of solution?" "Me," said simply. "This hatred began with my family many generations ago. If I surrender myself to them, perhaps they will be satisfied. Perhaps they will leave humanity alone." Park stared at the screen for a long moment. Then he shook his head. "Elder, I'm going to pretend you didn't just suggest that. Humanity doesn't buy peace by sacrificing innocent people. Not now. Not ever." "But your people will die because of us," said, his voice breaking. "How can I live with that?" "You'll live with it the same way we will," Park replied. "By standing together and fighting for what's right. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a battle to prepare for." He ended the call and turned back to his display. The human fleet had gathered at the edge of New Eden's system. Behind them was the colony world where 3 million refugees were waiting. In front of them, the darkness of space where the enemy would soon appear. Jack and Amy Dawson had volunteered for a dangerous mission. They would lead a small group of supply ships to deliver extra ammunition and fuel to the frontline vessels. It was risky work that would put them close to the battle zone. "You don't have to do this," Admiral Park had told them. "You're cargo haulers, not soldiers." Jack had smiled. "We started this. We're going to see it through." They left with 5 other ships, moving quickly through the void. Everything went smoothly at first. They reached the fleet and began distributing supplies. Then the alarm started screaming. "Scouts," Amy shouted. "6 ships coming in fast." The enemy vessels appeared on their sensors like angry red dots. They had been hiding behind an asteroid field, waiting for exactly this kind of opportunity. Jack's old cargo ship was not built for combat. None of them were. They tried to run, but the scouts were faster. The first shot hit one of the supply ships, and it exploded in a ball of fire. The second shot damaged another vessel, leaving it drifting helplessly. "We're not going to make it," Amy said, her voice tight with fear. Jack gripped the controls. "Keep going, don't stop." Another shot rocked their ship. Warning lights flashed everywhere. They were going to die out here, so close to safety but too far to reach it. Then something unexpected happened. A new ship appeared on their sensors. It was small and old, but it was moving fast. It flew straight at the scouts, weapons firing. "Human vessels, this is the warship Pride of," a young voice said over the radio. "We are here to help." Jack watched in amazement as the small ship engaged all 6 scouts by itself. It was a suicide mission. There was no way they could win. But they weren't trying to win. They were buying time. The ship darted and weaved, drawing fire away from the human convoy. Jack used the distraction to push his damaged vessel toward the safety of the main fleet. "They're going to be destroyed," Amy said. "I know," Jack replied quietly. The ship took hit after hit. Its shields failed. Its hull began breaking apart. But it kept fighting, kept the scouts busy, until every human vessel had escaped. In the final moment, the young captain sent one last message. "Tell Commander that the young ones remember too. Tell him we were proud to repay our debt to humanity. It was an honor." Then the ship was gone, consumed by fire. Jack sat in silence, tears running down his face. Beside him, Amy wept openly. The scouts, satisfied with their kill, retreated to rejoin their main fleet. They did not pursue the humans. The sacrifice had worked. When Jack's damaged ship finally docked with the flagship, Admiral Park was waiting for him. "I heard what happened," the Admiral said. "I'm sorry." Jack shook his head. "Don't be sorry, be ready. They died for us. We can't let that be for nothing." Park nodded slowly. "We won't." Hours later, the fleet finally arrived. 300 warships dropped out of hyperspace, forming a wall of metal and weapons that stretched across the void. Commander stood beside Admiral Park on the flagship's bridge. He had asked to be there for the battle. "Before this begins," said, "I want to thank you. Whatever happens today, my people will never forget what humanity has done for us." Park looked at the old. "Then let's make sure we both live to remember it." The first shots were fired. The Battle of New Eden had begun. The battle was a nightmare of fire and metal. Human ships fought with everything they had. Captains who had never seen combat flew into enemy formations without hesitation. Engineers worked to repair damage even as new shots tore through their hulls. Doctors treated the wounded while the world exploded around them. Admiral Park commanded from the center of the formation, directing ships like pieces on a game board. But there were too many enemies. For every vessel they destroyed, 3 more took its place. "We've lost 16 ships," his officer reported. "They have lost 22, but they have plenty more." Park said nothing. The math was simple. At this rate, the human fleet would be destroyed within hours. There was no reinforcement coming. Earth had sent everything it had. Commander stood beside him, watching the battle with ancient eyes. He had seen wars before, long ago when his people were strong. This one reminded him of the battles his ancestors had fought, brave warriors standing against impossible odds. "Your people fight well," said quietly. "It's not enough," Park replied. Another human ship exploded on the display, then another. They were pushing forward, breaking through the defensive lines. On New Eden below, the refugees watched the sky with fear. They could see the flashes of distant explosions like terrible stars being born and dying. The children were gathered in shelters, holding onto each other and crying. Laura stood with them, trying to offer comfort she did not feel. Somewhere up there, Jack and Amy were fighting. Somewhere up there, people were dying to protect them. On the flagship, alarms started screaming louder than ever. "Admiral, the center line is collapsing," an officer shouted. "We can't hold them." Park gripped the rail in front of him. He had known this moment might come. He had hoped it wouldn't, but he had prepared himself for it. "All ships," he said into the communication system, "fall back to the secondary position. We'll make our last stand there." The human fleet began to retreat. It was orderly but desperate. They had done everything they could, and it wasn't enough. Lowered his head. "I am sorry, Admiral. My people brought this doom upon you." "Don't apologize," Park said firmly. "We made our choice. We don't regret it." Then something impossible happened. A burst of light appeared at the edge of the battle zone, then another, then dozens more. Ships were dropping out of hyperspace, one after another. Park stared at the display. "What is that?" The newcomers were not. Their ship designs were different, varied, a mixture of styles from across the galaxy. A voice came through the communication system. "Human fleet, this is Captain of the Confederation. We have not forgotten when humanity sent food ships to our colonies during the Great Drought. We are here to repay that kindness." Before Park could respond, another voice joined in. "This is Commander of the Meridian Alliance. 30 years ago, humans helped rebuild our after the earthquake. Today we stand with you." Then another. "This is the Republic. Humans gave us medicine when the plague struck our system. We remember." And another, and another. 12 different species, over 80 ships, all arriving at the same moment, all coming to help humanity. Park couldn't speak. His eyes were wet. The commander must have been shocked too, because their advance suddenly stopped. The new arrivals changed everything. The numbers were no longer so uneven. "All ships," said over the open channel, "attack formation. Let's show these what happens when you threaten friends of the galaxy." The combined fleet surged forward. What had been a desperate retreat became a powerful counterattack. The suddenly facing enemies from multiple directions began to fall back. The battle lasted another 3 hours. When it was over, the fleet had retreated into hyperspace, leaving behind dozens of destroyed vessels. The Battle of New Eden was won. On the flagship, Park finally allowed himself to sit down. His hands were shaking. Stood beside him, tears streaming down his scaled face. "I don't understand," the old said. "Where did they all come from? Why did they help?" Park laughed softly. "Because humanity has been helping others for a long time. Whenever we could, wherever we were needed. We never asked for anything in return. We just helped." He looked at the display showing the Allied fleet. "I guess kindness builds up over time. And sometimes, when you really need it, it all comes back at once." 1 week later, a ceremony was held on New Eden. Representatives from every species that had fought in the battle gathered together with humans, and President Grant was there. So were Admiral Park, Jack, Amy Dawson, and Laura. Commander and Elder stood with them. But the most important moment came near the end. A young named the orphan boy who had once been lost in the forest walked forward carrying a small tree seedling. It was a tradition, had explained. When a new home was established, a tree was planted to mark new beginnings. Beside walked a human girl named Emma. She was 6 years old, the daughter of one of the colonists. The two children had become friends during the weeks of the crisis. Together they dug a small hole in the ground. Together they placed the seedling inside and covered its roots with soil. When they finished, they looked at each other and smiled. The crowd cheered. Elder spoke the final words of the ceremony. 200 years ago, we helped a young species survive. We did not know what they would become. We did not expect anything in return. But today, we have received more than we ever imagined. He gestured to the humans standing beside him. The Galactic Council has given humanity a new title today. They are now officially a guardian species, protectors of those in need. It is the highest honor any civilization can receive. President Grant stepped forward to accept the recognition, but before he could speak, he turned to. "We don't need titles," Grant said. "We just needed to remember. Someone helped us once and we promised ourselves we would do the same for others. That's all this was. That's all it ever is." Smiled, "And that is why your species is special. You understand that kindness is never wasted." Jack stood at the edge of the ceremony, watching the two children playing beside the newly planted tree. Amy stood beside him. "Do you think we made a difference?" she asked. Jack nodded slowly. "I think we reminded the galaxy what matters, helping each other, remembering kindness, paying it forward." He looked up at the sky, where ships from a dozen different species were still orbiting peacefully together. "A favor to humans is never forgotten," he said quietly. "And when we return it, I guess we can astonish people." Amy smiled and took his hand. Above them, the stars shone bright, filled with possibilities for a galaxy that had just learned an important lesson. Kindness always comes back. Sometimes in ways that astonish you.